Let's get started. The purpose of this webinar today is actually to cover the topic, which is around backup and disaster recovery for multi-cloud and for Microsoft Teams, and broadly also for Office 365 overall. Just before we do dive into the content, just an outline of the agenda. I'm going to go through some housekeepings for the webinar, talk about backup and disaster recovery strategy in the context of broader BCP strategy or campaign, and how to successfully then go into backup of Office 365, particularly focusing on Microsoft Teams, which is getting very popular. And then on the other side of that as well, talking about multi-cloud backup. This is backup from public cloud, Azure, AWS, etc. And then I'm going to wrap up with some Q&A and give some pricing indications as well for these things. So some housekeeping things, as I mentioned, all the participants are in listen-only mode, and that's intentional. If you have any questions, to put them into the questions box, and we'll get to those as in when possible towards the end, depending on whether the content was covered or not, and the time that we have. Any technical issues, you can use the raise hand function. There's some assumed knowledge given the audience that you know what backup in a data management context is, and that is it's a process of regular, often nightly data copy and storage without overwrite for months, if not years, such that you can restore a specific entity of data like a file or a folder as at a point in time, i.e. from 2 weeks ago or 3 months ago, etc. Continual replication, however, is not that, but a process of detecting data changes against a baseline and updating the replica of those changes, and it's in a continually overwriting fashion, such that the near real-time version of the production is kept at any point in time. So you can only really recover for the last good point in time, which is very, very recent, i.e. either an hour ago or a few minutes ago, even if you, depending on what technology is used. You also know what public cloud or hyperscale cloud providers are, and their brands such as Microsoft and AWS, and you know what Microsoft Office 365 is all about and its cloud components, so Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, which are all online services. All right, before I get diving into that, just to set the scene, data protection and replication is really a component of a broader business continuity. Now, it's very topical at the moment that everyone is preparing for working from home and thinking about the staff aspects as we deal with the COVID-19 virus outbreak and the measures taken in place to flatten the curve or slow down its native community spread. That would be part of a business continuity plan, which may not only involve technology, but also staff and how staff work, etc. Do they have laptops? Do they have power supplies, headsets, etc., etc.? So that's only one part of it, and we can, if you're our customer, we've got products and measures to enable you to do that and have your workforce remote working, the ones that can do anyway, the information workers. We have those services, so if you're not already in touch, get in touch. But to continue on this topic, we're talking more about, it's further down the pyramid here, around BCP, business continuity planning, in terms of data availability and infrastructure uptime availability. And that's what we'll be covering, which is down towards the bottom. All right, so changing gears and getting back to the heart of the topic, business workloads for a lot of businesses now are not just in one place. Historically, going back a decade, there probably were. All the data that the business needed, electronic data anyway, resided on a set of servers and storage, often in the private data center. It could have been the head office computer room, or it could have been a rack inside a data center of some fashion. But these days, your data and your your virtual machines and other compute services that are required for you to trade and have a brand presence online reside in multiple locations. Some could be in your private data center infrastructure, some could be in a boutique or local cloud provider like Brennan IT. Some data and applications run in SaaS, such as Teams, Office 365, Salesforce, and other software as a service applications that you use. And then, of course, in the public cloud, you may have virtualized workloads and platform as a service consumption in the public scale cloud. So your data resides in many places, and the font of the word data is intentionally, I've intentionally put it in slightly different fonts there because, yes, it's all data, but each environment has its own specifics that doesn't necessarily make that data in a consumable format completely portable, where you can just go take it from one and dump it to the other. So there needs to be a more holistic, a common denominator approach to protecting data and to protect the data in an independent fashion. So in summary, then, your corporate data is in multiple clouds. Sometimes it's backed up. In SaaS providers, the SaaS providers claim that it's backed up natively within themselves. Sometimes your data in other destinations in public cloud or in other places isn't really backed up. It may have some sort of archiving function, but it actually doesn't have any backup. And often that backup is back to itself. So if it's backing up back to itself, that brings into question around its availability, the potential for collateral damage should something happen to production. Application workloads now run in multiple clouds, like your virtual machines, as I covered, but often they don't have an independent backup. So you don't have a disaster recovery plan for that often either, other than to just have a copy of it in another region of the same platform. So, but no independent backup. So something to think about there. And Microsoft Teams, finally, the adoption as a collaboration tool is unlike anything we've seen. We've seen now within a year, a lot of businesses use it as the be-all and end-all for internal communications and project management, document handling, but it all lives in the Microsoft Office 365 cloud, and it really doesn't have an independent backup set of parameters, which I'll go through a little bit later on. So all this really needs a solution. So what is our offering? What is our solution in that respect? Before we get into that, let's just set some context for you. For those of you that do not consume any Brennan IT cloud services today, just an overview. Brennan IT owns and operates a substantial, what I call boutique cloud platform or local cloud platform. It's in the form of infrastructure as a service, IaaS, virtual data center, value for money, and with migration in and out services. So we migrate you in and you're not locked in. If you want to leave at the end, you can. Backup and DR target, our cloud platform, storage platform can be the target for multiple sources, public cloud, 365, which we'll go into soon. We are fully ISO 27001 compliant. It's guaranteed Australian sovereignty, your data is in your virtual machines, and we have industry leading uptime and SLAs backing up that uptime as well. We have local staff to contact, account management, networking department as well. So not just the cloud side, we have a strong networking function, and IT professionals to provide the complete service. That's migration, management of the OS and apps in life, and then migration out should you choose to depart. We're an independent local target for public cloud virtual machines. Now that's with and without agents. We'll go into that in the next slide. And we're an independent local target as well for Microsoft Teams backups and other data across Office 365. We can also be the independent local target for virtual machine continuous replication from the public cloud for rapid disaster recovery. So what does it look like in terms of a picture? Let me just start on the left and go to the right. Your data lives in the hyperscale public clouds, be it Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud Platform. the checkbox is against Azure because that's our strength, that's our focus and our core competency, but we can also address those other platforms. However, we find that more and more corporates are utilizing Microsoft Azure more so than AWS and GCP at this point in time for corporate workloads. And what we offer here is backup and DR from any of these, and then also from on-premise. So your on-premise workloads can be virtualized with VMware, which what most of the market is. Can be virtualized with Microsoft Hyper-V, and can also be virtualized with Nutanix. So by that I mean the Nutanix native Acropolis hypervisor. And what we offer is backup and DR services to all of these, with again mentioning that the stack is really focused on Azure and these range of hypervisors for your on-premise. And the backup is one aspect. We can also do near real-time continuous replication of workloads, those virtualized workloads in those environments as well, and target them back to our platform to hold that replica. Now, when you need to restore the data from the backup or the replica recovery in a disaster or crypto, whatever it may be, that recovery, depending on what the source is, that recovery can happen into our infrastructure or VDC platform, or that recovery or restore can happen back to the source platform. And there's good reasons as to why you would want to choose one over the other and have a combination of the both. So for example, if your virtual machines in Azure needed to be brought up in our cloud environment for whatever reason, whilst you say remediated the issues in your Azure tenancy, we can bring that up in our cloud environment and make the network changes such that your end users can continue to transact, but on the DR version. And if you're really sophisticated, you can we can set you up with backup and replication across the multi-cloud environment as well. So for example, you could have virtual machines in Azure targeted to AWS for replication and recovery. Obviously, Brennan IT would play a much smaller role in that because it'll just be a matter of services and software that would perform that. It won't be targeted to our cloud. So Microsoft Teams. I can assume that a lot of you have got stuck into Teams and slowly are making a transition and into getting used to the habits that Teams requires you to have to be able to get on with the way you work, or change the way you work and change the way you collaborate, as opposed to emails flying around in Outlook between people, attachments they're always searching for. It's a different way of working. It's a way of working in small chunks of groups that are very focused on an outcome and keeping all the data and files associated with that. All sounds well and good, but what about the backup? You're putting more and more reliance on Teams. It's an in the cloud proposition only for Microsoft. So what about the backup of that? Not many people have even thought about that aspect because they think that it's highly available, therefore the data would be there even for accidental deletion or corruption or whatever it may be. But that's not really quite the case. So the next slide really is about what Microsoft is obliged to do, and this is according to Microsoft, around Office 365 and Teams. So the first thing I should mention is Teams utilizes existing data stores within Office 365's other cloud application environments, i.e. chat data inside Microsoft Teams, so conversations, any attachments in those conversations, they go through to the Microsoft Exchange part of Office 365. There's no separate repository created for that. Files that you put on inside a team go into the SharePoint side repository on the Microsoft side. Any personal data, personal files that you put on or profile related things go into your OneDrive business repository. So it utilizes existing backend and puts a nice new different way of collaboration skin on the front, if I can present it that way. So out of all those elements, you can see here what Microsoft does. For example, your inbox and folder data is not proactively deleted by Microsoft, but after around the 2-year mark, it's moved to an archive-only mode. When you delete something in Office 365, no matter what application it is, it goes into recycle bin, and Microsoft automatically deleted from your recycle bin permanently after 1 month. Now, auto archive data is moved. That's if you have a rule that says move something to archive, it's moved to archive and is kept there permanently, but that's if you have the rule set up. And again, deleted items in SharePoint Online sites. This includes the files part of Teams as well with OneDrive. When you delete something, it goes to first stage recycle bin after a month, second stage, and after 3 months, it's permanently deleted by Microsoft. And of course, when an employee leaves the company, unless you go and take their data away, once you cancel that account, the data of that user is permanently deleted after 1 month, which is maybe not what you want to do. So it's up to you to copy that out of there. So what we know through research that Microsoft and other parties have done is the average length of time from data compromise to discovery is about 140 days. So that's the average. However, if you come to this table, you eyeball it, and it seems like the default settings are really between 30 and 90 days, between 1 month and 3 months. That's the typical average of when things get permanently deleted after you delete them or shut down a user in Office 365. But that may not really be something that you want. That's maybe not the way you deal with other business critical data in your other server storage environments. So why should this be any different? Well, what we can do is offer you a solution where we back up all those elements of Office 365 to our local secure cloud environment and give you the flexibility of determining the retention policy. So you can decide to retain your entire Office 365 data for 3 months, for 6 months, for 1 year, for 7 years, or forever, whatever that means. But we give you that as a proposition, and you pay monthly for the total compressed data that's stored on our side. And it includes the service layer around that as well, to detect any backup faults, etc., and for us to proactively remediate those things. So that's the Office 365 side covered, and the technology partners that enable us to do both the Office 365 native and backup agent or agentless backup of Office 365 and the multi-cloud backup of these really. So we would use Veeam or Commvault to do the full backup story, whether it be virtual machines, Office 365. And we have a dual partner strategy because we know that a lot of businesses don't want to create unicorns where a specific software is only used for specific things. Now, a lot of you are already using Veeam for your other backup. You can simply extend that and cover Office 365. Some of you may already be using Commvault, and we can simply extend that to cover Office 365. And the same can be said about multi-cloud. So we can just extend what you currently use rather than have a completely separate independent backup system. Now, if you use some other backup software other than Veeam or Commvault for your backup, then from with us anyway, it would mean that we would use these tools to perform the 365 and multi-cloud backup. And so there's no really way around that. We don't cover every backup data protection software there is available in the market. Now, Zerto, some of you may have heard of Zerto. Zerto is a continuous replication software company, and that's what we use to perform the agent or agentless continuous replication, either from on-prem or from those multi-clouds, like I mentioned before. And AvePoint is lastly the software technology we use as a SaaS technology to do Office 365 backup. However, AvePoint's target is not the local secure Brennan IT cloud. AvePoint's target is their own SaaS-based cloud environment, which most likely lives as storage in a couple of multi-clouds, and they're not really clear about exactly where the data lives. But if that's the type of solution that you as a customer would like, which is more software as a service outcome, then we use that, have that in our portfolio as well. So in some summary, covering all that, what we're proposing today here is to consider Office 365 in terms of your data protection and business continuity, and that we have a solution that covers the whole of the Office 365 suite, including Microsoft Teams, which is not that common in the marketplace. So we think that we're a little bit in the front of the pack there. So that's the number one message. If your virtual machines run in multiple clouds like Microsoft Azure, AWS and the likes, we can run backups of that and target them to the Brennan IT cloud as well as an independent. And we can run on-premise virtual machines, including Nutanix if you've adopted that. Disaster recovery-wise, replication for public cloud and on-premise to the Brennan IT cloud. It's Australian, it's secure with ISO 27001 across all our locations. And again, if the restore to the original platform, the source of where we're getting the data from is not an option, we can also restore the data into our cloud environment and you can access it from there, including full disaster recovery of your virtual machines from those compatible clouds, meaning your on-premise infrastructure and Microsoft Azure. Some clients, some of you may be on the call, some we have provided these services to, some happy customers there. You hopefully recognize some of those names. Ingham's Chicken. Timon is a tanker manufacturer, tankers for fuel distribution mainly, and Arrow is a logistics company, and Fantastic is Australia's largest toy importer and distributor. Some pricing guidance. The questions you always get asked on these is how much, so we won't be shy about that. The indicative pricing would be for backing up your entire Office 365, it would be around $10 per user per month. That's to back up and restore all the data for 12 months. And it climbs up from that if you want to do 7-year retention across that data as well. So that's the entire tenancy, including the Microsoft Teams data. And typically, depending on the size of the organization, it would carry with it a $2,000 implementation project charge for up to about 300 users. And that's without full-blown project management on top. For Azure and AWS, Google Cloud, on-premise VM backup, indicatively 12 cents per gigabyte per month, all inclusive of the software and service backup remediations and restores as well, within reason for file folder level restores, with a basic retention policy, which is 12 months, and 25 cents per gig per month for an advanced policy where granular backups are kept for up to 7 years, more relevant for the health and financial services sector. And as I said, it's inclusive of storage of software and the services around proactive backup failure investigation and file level restoration as well. Now on the public cloud side and on-premise replication, Azure, AWS, on-premise continuous VM replication, disaster recovery, first of all, is around $60 per VM per month cost, and then about 10 cents per gigabyte per month for the storage, the front-end storage that we're protecting. There's not much in the terms of compression gains here because we're replicating the real-time environment and adding some journals to it. So it's just based on the size of the data that we're protecting up front. Okay, that covers the content. If there's any questions. Right, what are some of the immediate actions business can do for backup and DR considering current pandemic? So the immediate consideration is very unlikely to be related to your IT data itself. Luckily enough, it's the type of virus that doesn't attack computers, so your data itself should be okay. You should be considering this, whether there's pandemic or not. Pandemic really preparation is for your staff to be able to work from home. Whoever your network, wherever your network service provider is, where your data resides, you need to organize them with them. Hopefully it's us, and get your users on their, what we call an SSL VPN, and have that deployed through their machines. If your users don't have desktops, they need to, don't have laptops, sorry, they need to be provided with laptops, or their home laptop can be used to download the VPN agent. It's just their home laptop won't be your corporate build, so it won't natively have access to your shared folders, etc. But once on the VPN, they may be able to type in your intranet URL, etc. Given this modern day, however, a lot of your corporate data that's in software as a service applications doesn't really need any VPN connection to be accessed, because it can be accessed natively, not just today, but even in the past, over the internet. So things like Office 365, Salesforce should not need any particular arrangements, as long as your end users can work on their PC from home. Continuity-wise, in terms of telephony as well, you might need to consider that, whether your phone system, unified communications provider is, if you need that user to be making and receiving phone calls from their desk phone as they're sitting, they can organize, if you have a compatible system, a soft phone to be installed on the user's machine, and that soft phone, or the app that runs on the PC, will behave as if it was their phone on their desk. So if you do those things, then your users should, from an IT transaction perspective, should be enabled just as much as they were in the office. Of course, it relies on them having a stable internet connection at home to be online. Any other questions? All right, there's no more questions. Thanks very much for your time. This webinar is recorded. All the content and the slides will be available and communicated at the end of the webinar via email. Thanks for your time.